Hello, I'm John with Roadkill Incorporated, and today I'm doing a video on identifying the differences between the 5 years of MacBook Unibody computers, 2008 there on the left, all the way to 2012 on the right. They look pretty much identical on the surface, even though they span 5 years. And, this guy is only worth a third of the 2012, and the 2012 is a far more powerful computer. So, you might be at a recycler, you might be in front of a pile of 300 of these and need to identify them quickly, figure out what they're worth so you can make an offer, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm going to jump right into the differences. Thanks to Frank Donato for suggesting this video. I think it'll help a lot of people. So let's get started. All right, so we'll start with the easiest one, the 2008 models. This is a 13-inch and a 15-inch 2008, and then here we have a newer MacBook. So can you see the difference? The difference is that 2008 always has this trapdoor battery cover. You press the lever, pull this guy off, this annoying piece of metal that bends and doesn't fit on right, and then you have the battery, hard drive goes here, and it's got a specific rail specific to 2008s. So yeah, that's basically it. If you see a solid panel, you know it's 2009 and up. You see this trapdoor situation, you know it's 2008. Very easy. It's also worth noting that 2008s have their own type of battery. You can see that they have these silvery batteries as opposed to the black batteries that 2009 and above have. And there are also two different sizes, the 13 and the 15 inch. You can see the 15 is bigger, similar to the 13 and 15 inch in 2009 and above. There are two different variations of the 15 inch battery, but I will talk about that later. The last thing I want to say about 2008 is that the 13-inch model is a MacBook. It's not a MacBook Pro. The 15-inch model is a MacBook Pro, and in fact, all 2009 models through 2012, both sizes are MacBook Pros. So for some reason, they decided to call the 13-inch 2008 a MacBook. So it's a small piece of information, but it's pretty critical because it's a dead giveaway that you're looking at a 2008, and a lot of people get it confused, which is understandable. So you'll see an eBay listing that says MacBook Pro, and you'll see the picture, and it'll say MacBook. So very important to know. So from here on out, unfortunately, it's not quite so simple. There aren't that many outward identifiers that tell you the difference between 2009 to 2012. One of them, though, is the video out. Up to 2010, it was a mini DisplayPort. You can see the little mini DisplayPort icon. And then 2011 and up, you see the Thunderbolt port. So if you see a Thunderbolt icon, you know that's 2011 or 2012. And if you see the mini DisplayPort icon, you know that it's 2010 or earlier. So again, a small thing, but it's good to know these identifiers. Before we go inside these laptops, there's only one other outward identifier I'm aware of, which is the serial number. But fortunately, the serial number tells us a lot. The serial is on the middle top of the back of the computer, as you can see here. The last 3 or 4 digits of the serial number are a code, which gives away what year it is. I usually just pay attention to the last 3 because it's simpler. Here's a chart of the codes I've found. For example, TY3 and TY4 are the ones I know best because those are the 2012s I want to sort out of a pile of older machines. Keep in mind this chart is not comprehensive, and there are other codes out there that I haven't found. So for example, don't assume that because a computer doesn't say TY3 or TY4 that it's not 2012, because there are other codes out there that mean the same thing. I wish there was a comprehensive chart, but I've searched the internet and I've never been able to find one for some reason. And also keep in mind that MacBooks often have a replacement bottom case with an incorrect serial, so going by the printed serial is often not the best way to go. There's also a way to break down the beginning of the serial number to determine the year and month the computer was manufactured. Here's a guide to doing that if you want to see it. But in my opinion, that's a little more cumbersome than just spotting the last 3 digits of the serial. So to spot more differences, we have to go inside the cases. I'll start with the 13-inch machines because they are different from the 15. All the 13-inch models between 2008 and 2012 are known as A1278, A1278. This identifies the 13-inch unibody form factor. Here we have 2009 through 2012 because we're done with 2008. So the first thing I'd say is that the 2011 and 2012 models have this diagonal Wi-Fi Bluetooth cable, and the 2009 and 2010 do not. So very simply, if you see this diagonal cable, which is very obvious, then you know you're dealing with 2011 or 2012. And if you don't see that, you've got a 2009 or 2010. All right, so you don't see that diagonal cable on either of these, so you know it's either 2009 or 2010, but how do you tell those years apart? Actually, these 2 years are pretty tricky. There's not that much differentiating them. One thing I have noticed, though, is that the metal sort of hinge cover bracket deal on 2009 tends to be silver on either side, and then into 2010, they switched to black. I think that holds true across the board, but that's one thing I've noticed. So you see silver here, 2009, you see black, 2010. Beyond that, they're pretty darn similar. I look at the sticker quite a bit. 2009, they tend to print the speed, 2.26 gigahertz, either 2.26 or 2.53. Those are the only two speeds of the 2009 13-inch Pro. So if you see those two speeds, 2.26 or 2.53, you know you've got a 2009. And then on 2010, they don't print the speed, but they print the serial, and ATM, ATN, all of the AT codes are 2010. So you see that ATM, ATN, you know it's 2010. So yeah, look for the hinge cover pieces, the color, and then also look at the sticker, and that will tell you which of the 2 years you're looking at. As far as 2011 and 2012, it's a little bit easier with these guys. The hard drive cable in 2012 is always this fat cable, whereas 2011 it's a thin cable. And then on 2012, I took the little foam pad off so you can see. The clasp on the video cable is a round wire, whereas on 2011, it's sort of a flat wire. So that's a dead giveaway that you have a 2012 or you have a 2011. And like I said, this is probably what I look at most because it's so obvious. The fat hard drive cable means 2012 versus a thin hard drive cable means you have a 2011. The funny thing is they all had the thin hard drive cable and they were pretty good quality, but then in 2012 they got the bright idea to switch to this monster cable, and yet this cable has all kinds of flaws and goes bad when you simply remove a hard drive half the time. So it's kind of funny that they would make a change at the last generation and that change would turn out to be not a good one. Also with 2012, I tend to look at the serial number because you want to see that TY3 or TY4 number. I don't honestly pay attention to those codes that much, but TY3 and TY4, which are the i5 and i7 versions of the 2012, you want to burn those into your memory because those are the codes you want to see. Also, interestingly, the screen assemblies for the 2012 and 11 are interchangeable because they have all the same wiring. It all comes down to the webcam and Wi-Fi wiring, but they have the same wiring. The video cable and socket are a little bit different between these two. Physically, they're a little different, so it takes some work to get one into the other, but it can be done. 2009 and 2010, they have identical screen assemblies, so they can be swapped. Again, the cabling is the same. Interestingly, the 2008 has a screen assembly that looks identical to 2009 and 2010, but it has the sleep magnet on the opposite side. So you put a 2008 screen assembly on 2009, 2010, and when you close the lid, it won't sleep because the sleep magnet's on the wrong side. So just interesting to know. All right, so we're done with the 13-inch machines. I wanted to point out that all 13-inch Pros use the same battery. Like I said before, the 2008 has its own battery, but the 2009 to 2012 Pros all have the same battery, which is this guy here. And one thing that's important to know is that this battery is different than the 13-inch white unibody A1342 battery. The white unibody battery looks basically the same, except this section here is longer, whereas on the 13-inch Pro battery, it's shorter. So they're not interchangeable. It's very important to know that. All right, so we're done with 13-inch Pros. Now we're on to the 15-inch Pros. They're a little more complex. The 15-inch Pro is known as the A1286, A1286, which is the 15-inch Pro unibody form factor. The diagonal cable is an element of these as well, except instead of just being on 11 and 12, it's on 10, 11, and 12. They all three have that. And then 2009 does not. And actually, there are two 2009s. There's the single fan 2009, double fan 2009. So the single fan's very easy. If you see a 15-inch Pro with a single fan, you know it is the 2009 15-inch Pro. And if you see a dual fan 15-inch Pro without the diagonal cable, you know that's 2009 as well. Onto the 2010 versus 2011 and 2012, there is one very simple way to spot a 2010. The webcam connector is on the side, coming into the side of the board, whereas on the 2011 and 2012, it's kind of up here at an angle. So 2011 and 2012 have it coming in at an angle like that, kind of parallel with this cable. And then 2010, it's a longer cable and it comes in on the side. So the screen assemblies between 2010 and 2011-12 are not compatible because they have one fewer airport connector, and then this cable is longer to reach down to the side. Whereas you see here, we've got an additional connector and then a shorter cable because it plugs in right at the corner there. As far as 2011 versus 2012, similar to the 13-inch model, the video cable clasp is still a differentiator. The round video cable clasp tells you have a 2012 versus the flat one means you have a 2011. And the screen assemblies between 2011 and 12, similar to the 13-inch model, are interchangeable. And similarly, they're physically just a little different, so it does take a little bit of work, but you can swap the two. And then onto the hard drive cable situation, you do still have a fatter cable in the 2012, although it's only really fat underneath the hard drive, so you have to take out the hard drive to see that. It does get a little fatter towards the end there. You can see how it sort of opens up, whereas the 2011 is just a slim cable the whole way. So yeah, basically you want to look at the video cable clasp to see if it's round or flat. You can also look at the serial number. You can see this one is a V33, which tells you it's a 2012. One big difference between the 13 and 15-inch unibody Pros is that the 15-inch models have two different batteries, which is really annoying. The 2009 and 2010 take a battery connector that goes in sort of sideways. You can see that there, and then also you can see the battery connected. And then 2011, 2012, it's kind of top down. It goes into there like that. So you can see that connected. So yeah, really annoying. Physically, the batteries are identical. It's just the connector that is different at all. So vendors constantly get this mixed up. So here is the sort of fatter connector. You can see how it's a little bit wider at the end there, that goes into the 2011 and 2012, and then the sort of slimmer connector there that goes into the 2009-2010. So really annoying, but it's something you've just gotta know. So just when you thought we're done, here are three more computers. These are the 17-inch Pro unibodies. I'm not going to go into too much depth because I don't deal with these very often, and there aren't that many of them compared to the other models. There is no 2012, that's why there's no computer over there. There's just the 2011, 2010, and 2009, and there's also no 2008. So there were fewer years of these, just three. A few pointers. So the 2011 and the 2010 have the diagonal cable. The 2009 does not. So if you have a 17 with no diagonal cable, you know it's a 2009. As far as determining the difference between 2010 and 11, look at the Wi-Fi configuration. If you have 3 connectors and then 1, then it's a 2011, similar to a 15-inch 2011. And then if you have 2 and then 1, it's a 2010, similar to a 15-inch 2010. Similar to the 15-inch models, the 17s have 2 different battery types. The 2009 and 2010 have a battery connector that goes in from the side, and it actually goes under the board, which is kind of annoying. And then 2011, similar to 2011 and 12 on the 15s, has this similar connector that goes down from the top. So it's a monster battery. You can see the size difference between the 15 and the 17. And here's an example of the connector that goes under the board there in the 2009 and 2010. It's kind of a unique, slim connector that goes in there like that. And finally, one thing worth pointing out is that the 17-inch models have their own unique hard drive bracket. You can see how on the 17-inch model, the 2 ends are identical, whereas on the 13 and 15-inch hard drive bracket, on one side it's got this kind of nub that sticks out here. So they're not compatible, and yeah, that's something you need to know.
So that's pretty much it, but there are some various other differences between the years that I figure I might as well highlight while I'm doing this. One is RAM. The different years take different speeds of DDR3 RAM. 2009 and 2010 both take PC3 8500 1066 megahertz. 2011 takes PC3 10600 1333 megahertz. It's important to not get the PC3 10600 number mixed up with 1066 megahertz from the 2009-2010. Those are 2 different things, and it's very easy to do, so be aware of that. And then the 2012s take PC3 12800 1600 megahertz RAM. So the 2012 has a 1600 megahertz bus. It's the fastest. The main rule of RAM is don't put slower memory in a computer than what it was meant for. So for example, don't put 1333 megahertz RAM into a 2012, because you'll be slowing down the 1600 megahertz bus to 1333 megahertz. You don't want to cause that performance hit. So these images here are pictures of actual memory modules that come in MacBooks, just so you can get a sense of what they look like and the brands that are used. So, onto processors. In 2008-2009, it was all about Core 2 Duos. In 2010, the 13-inch had Core 2 Duo, while the 15 and 17-inch went on to dual-core i5 and dual-core i7s. In 2011 and 2012, the 13-inch had dual-core i5 and i7, and the 15 and 17-inch went on to quad-core i7s. So, pretty straightforward. And finally, the operating system. Different years max out at different operating systems. 2008 and 2009 can only take up to El Capitan. 2010 and 11 max out at High Sierra. And 2012 can only go as far as Catalina. It will not take Big Sur. They've drawn a line at 2012, and you have to have 2013 or above to go to Big Sur, which is a shame, but, you know, it happens. There was a time when High Sierra was the current OS, and it was great. 2010, 11, and 12 would all take the latest OS, and those machines were almost interchangeable because there wasn't that much of a difference between them. You could basically sell any of those 3 years, and you had the most current OS. But, you know, times change, and like I said, Apple does draw that line eventually. And I wanted to mention as well, if you're ever in doubt about anything, just go to everymac.com, click on the lookup button, and in this box in the middle of the screen, type an identifier, type a serial number. It'll pull up all the information that you could possibly need on that specific machine. I probably used Everymac 50 different times just doing research for this very video. So amazing, amazing site. I use it every day. You can also search by year. Click on the year and then drill down into the list of computers from that year. And once again, it presents you with all the information. It's all right there. Really, really great site. Totally recommend it.
All right, so we're going to do a laptop identification speed round. I've assembled a random pile of laptops, and we're going to just go through them and see if we can sort them really quickly. So this is a 13, no diagonal cable. So ATM, that means 2010. Also, the bracket on the hinge is black, so that means 2010. All right, V13, that indicates 2011. We do have a diagonal cable, and we have a flat locking clasp. That means 2011. Okay, so this one's super easy. We've got the trapdoor battery. That is 2008. This is another one. This is 2010 ATM. I always look for that code. And then we've got the black hinge brackets. Another 2008, very easy. And another 2010 ATM. We've got the black hinge covers there. This one says TY3, so I would suspect it's 2012. And yes, it's got the fat hard drive cable. It says V30. Actually, it didn't match the case, but it says V30, which is another indicator of 2012. And then the locking clasp on the video cable is also round, so those mean 2012. Okay, diagonal cable, fat hard drive cable. This is a 2012 TY3 round locking clasp. Okay, so no diagonal cable. This is a 2009 or 10, but which one? It's got the black parts there, so that means 2010. Yeah, so 2010. Even though we don't have a serial number, we know it's 2010. Okay, what is this? So diagonal cable. Here is a hard drive cable, but it's a slim hard drive cable. It doesn't get fat towards the end. And then we have the flat locking clasp. So this is a 2011. No diagonal cable. So this is 2009 or 10. ATM, that means 2010. It's got the black brackets there. All right, so on to the 15-inch versions. So right off the bat, diagonal cable. Oh, look, the webcam connector's coming in from the side, not the angle. So from the side it means 2010. Verified also because the hard drive cable is narrow at the end and the flat locking clasp. So definitely 2010. Okay, both cables are diagonal here. Diagonal here means 2011 or 12. So, oh, no hard drive cable to tell us anything, but we do have a flat locking clasp. Flat clasp means 2011 as opposed to 12. So this is a 2011. Okay, we have diagonal cables, so 2011 or 12. Narrow cable here, that means 2011. And the flat clasp, 2011. Okay, no diagonal cable here. So what does that mean? That means 2009. Only the 2009 does not have this diagonal cable. You see two fans, so this is the dual fan 2009. Okay, so diagonal cable, but this one comes in from the side. So what does that tell us? 2010. No diagonal cable, two fans. This is a 2009. Two diagonal cables. Oh, look at this. We do have a fat hard drive cable that kind of fattens up at the end here. And then we have a rounded hard drive locking clasp. So that is a 2012. Also verified by V35. V35 is the faster version of the 2012. Diagonal cables. Hard drive cable that does not get fat at the end. Flat clasp. So that's a 2011. And what the heck is this? This is kind of a trick. Notice the strange dotted pattern here and the battery connector. This is a 2008. It just doesn't have the two panels on it, so it's not immediately obvious that it's got the trapdoor battery compartment. But this is what it looks like without the panels. Like I said, look out for this spotted pattern and then the battery connector there. In any other model, it would be, right here as opposed to here.
Alright, so I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you learned something from this. And I want to mention too, I'm not any kind of genius. I've just accumulated this information from doing this for more than a decade. There are certainly identifiers out there that I'm not aware of, and certainly this is not totally comprehensive. I'm sure if you do this kind of work, there are things you know that I don't know. So please post updates in the notes. Let's all put our heads together and get better at our jobs identifying MacBooks. So thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.